Hi everyone, my name is Anna-Marie and I want to give you a very warm welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Today I am going to speak about someone who came through compromise and fear and grief into redemption and restoration. And it is actually partly, obviously, a difficult story, but then we find that this person found redemption. She was redeemed and she was restored. And that is the wonderful thing. Whatever difficulty we are in, whatever grief, whatever just horrendous circumstances we may find ourselves in, there is a way back to redemption and restoration. And today I want to speak about a woman called Naomi. Now, in the last couple of videos, I spoke about her husband, Elimelech, and I spoke about her two sons, Mahlon and Kilian. Today, I want to speak about Naomi. And I trust that all of us can learn something from that story, from this lady. And I'm going to start off with in the place where she was compromised and full of fear, or at least that's how I perceived it. So her name, Naomi, means pleasant. What a wonderful characteristic to have. Don't we all like to be around people who are pleasant? I know personally many pleasant people, and I love to be with them. However, as I often do, I had a closer look at what the word pleasant means and came across the following synonyms: pleasing, nice, agreeable, friendly, obliging, sweet, to name but a few. These are generally considered positive qualities. We can indeed consider them a strength in a person. Yes, these very wonderful attributes can also be, however, our greatest weakness. People who are pleasant, pleasing, nice, agreeable, friendly, obliging, and sweet often have a deep need of harmony. Again, desiring harmony is in itself something really good. Yet, if it is harmony at any cost, we can walk down a slippery slope into the land of compromise and fear. Keeping harmony at any cost, agreeing with things we know are actually not what Jesus would do, often comes because we fear people. We fear their reactions, or we fear they might turn away from us, or they might sulk, or we fear an unpleasant atmosphere. Notice, fear, fear, fear. However, what we don't realize is that holding back in speaking out the truth to a person doesn't actually help this person either. They never learn to face or question their views and opinions. They never learn to ask, why am I thinking that way, or speaking that way, or acting this way? It means we hold them back from changing and growing. Another reason for being pleasant, pleasing, nice, agreeable, friendly, obliging, and sweet is because we can use this as a weapon to get what we want, to manipulate. This usually starts in childhood, where children learn, if I am nice and agreeable, I get attention and I might get what I want. Deep down in their being, we all have the need to be accepted. It's something we all need. But so often we seek it in the wrong place, rather than with the Lord. Or we have the need to get our own way. So we would rather stay quiet because we have an agenda. We may have had painful experiences in the past, or because we may fear losing a relationship. Thirdly, these characteristics can also be cultural. This can be the family culture, or a church culture, or a national culture. I personally have encountered people from many different cultural backgrounds. In some cultures, children learn from a very young age to smile sweetly, to always be nice, always say yes, always be good. But so often when they are older, they rebel. They enter even destructive lifestyles, all done in secret so that no one knows about it. On the surface, they continue to act as the culture dictates. In these cultures, people are taught that it is shameful to tell others what we really think and feel. These people live in a prison of shame. But Jesus came to set us free from prison, any kind of prison. Through him, we have been given access to another culture, the heavenly culture. I have been wondering if Naomi was this kind of pleasant person who never opened her mouth or questioned what Elimelech decided to do. We don't read that she objected to the names he chose for their sons. Maybe she was the kind of person who did not like to ruffle the feathers or upset the apple cart, two things we say in English. She kept quiet. At this point in her life, she just went along with whatever was decided by another. Too many people have adopted that same mindset Naomi may have had. However, would you not rather be pleasing to the God of truth? Being pleasing to God means we need His wisdom on how, when, and what to speak. We don't just speak for the sake of speaking. We don't want to speak in anger and frustration. We need heavenly wisdom. And that teaches us the how, when, and what. It's not about like walking like an elephant in the china shop, doing a lot of damage to others. Sometimes, in fact, we may need to be quiet till we have the wisdom from above on how and when and what to say. So I was talking about, in the first part, about compromise and fear. This second part, I want to speak about losses and grief. We can learn a lot from Naomi in this next passage about perseverance, especially while navigating difficult circumstances. Naomi was in a foreign land. She had already had the loss when she left her homeland. That was a loss for her. Now she had more losses. She lost her husband and she lost her sons. Broken and full of grief, she made a bold decision. She made up her mind to return to her homeland. Notice, she made a decision for herself at this point. She wasn't going along with somebody else's decision. She had heard that God had been gracious to her people and had given them bread again. Naomi originally lived in Bethlehem, or Beit Lechem, as it is known in Hebrew, and the word means house of bread. The memories of what it used to be like came flooding back, I'm sure, as she heard of what happens in this city, in this town. Besides which, all she had left, she thought, were her daughters-in-law. And maybe she longed for the comfort of familiar surroundings and people she had once known. Her daughters-in-law wanted to go with her, but she tried to persuade them to stay. She told them, "Look, I have nothing to offer you." Indeed, she was at a very low point when she said that. However, Ruth could not be persuaded. And so the two of them went back to Bethlehem. When the women saw her, the women of Bethlehem, they said, "Isn't that Naomi?" But she said to them, "Don't call me Naomi, call me Mara," which means bitter. Because she said, "The Lord has dealt with me bitterly. I went out full and came back empty. The Lord afflicted me." Wow, she was indeed full of grief. She didn't even see that she came back with Ruth, the Moabite, who insisted on staying by her side, who left everything she knew for her mother-in-law. That was amazing, but at that point, Naomi never saw that. And often when people grieve, one of the things they do is blaming. They blame other people or they blame the Lord. And did you hear what she said? She said, "We went out full." Really? So why then didn't she say to her husband, "Hey, hang on a minute, Elimelech. Firstly, your name means my God is king. So surely he will provide for us." Because at that time, apparently there was a famine in the land. There was no harvest. So they just left. He decided, let's go to Moab. Often when people go through difficult times, the first thing they think is, let's run to something else. Let's do or go somewhere which this may save us. another job, another wife or husband, another country, all kinds of things we might want to run to instead of staying and remembering, my God is King. He is my provider. But she said nothing. And now she comes back. She says, we went out full. Really? So why did they leave in the first place if there was fullness there? And again, why did she never say anything to her husband? You know, we as women who are married, we are meant to compliment our husbands. And one of the words we read at the beginning of scriptures is we have been made to be a help for our husbands. That means not just to bring his slippers when he comes home and put the food on the table when he comes home. It means that sometimes we have to say, my dear, are you sure you've heard God on this? Why don't we pray together and listen together what he says to us for this situation? That may be a challenge for both of us, but this is what we're made for. We're not just meant to say yes, 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 yes. We are meant to hear God for ourselves and then be able to speak truth into our husbands' or wives' lives. Well, now she is back. She does not want anyone to call her pleasant. She is in a bad way, and she calls herself bitter. Naomi by now was not young anymore. She settles back, maybe even into her old house. Who knows? Because of age, she couldn't pull her weight working the field either. And furthermore, grief had paralyzed her. Now we come to point 3 in the story. Becoming the one God made her to be. Redeemed, restored, sustained. Time went by, and as we read on in the book of Ruth, we see that Naomi was provided for. She had a roof over her head, and she had food on the table. Wasn't that amazing? Provided for by Ruth and Boaz, whom she hadn't yet met. Those two people provided that food for her. She also had people around her who were for her and wanted to help and spoke truth over her life. All these things, I'm sure, would have greatly helped to her recovery from the grief she felt. And then she started to look outward again. This is another important part in recovering from grief. She actually began to actively care for her daughter-in-law, in that she gave her good advice. And she walked Ruth through the Israelite customs of proposal to a kinsman redeemer. I can hear even a little excitement at the prospect of the good which might come her way. She began to speak blessing over Boaz, another important component in our lives, to speak blessing over others. That is looking away from just me to others, wanting to bless them. And the time came, of course, when Ruth got married to Boaz and gave birth to a son. And Naomi became very much a part of this little family and took care of the little grandson. She got very involved, active. What a joy it must have been to be around Naomi now. She had truly become what God had intended her to be, pleasant. Someone who had learned the hard way. Someone who became decisive and made decisions for herself. Someone who was not afraid to give advice anymore. Someone who began to speak out blessing over another. But also someone who had learned to receive from people around her. For they wanted to provide for her something, so she received that graciously. So important. We cannot go on our own through hardship and difficult times, through grief and loss, without others who support us, others who speak truth over our life, others who love and care for us. And we see that very clearly in Naomi's life. I am sure it had a great impact. I want to briefly turn our attention to the women around her, who right from the moment she returned called her by name. Naomi, Naomi, the pleasant one. In spite of what they saw in front of their eyes, they called out what God had always intended her to be. And it was those same women who once again came to speak out prophetically as they rejoiced with her. And they said, "Blessed is the Lord who has not left you without a redeemer today. And may his name become famous in Israel. May he also be to you a restorer of life and a sustainer of your old age." Amazing, amazing prophetic word over her life and the life of that little boy. It was the women who came to see her when the baby was laying in her lap. And yet again, they spoke prophetically. A son has been born to Naomi. So they named him Obed. The name means worshipper, serving God. This boy was to be a reminder that she should turn her eyes to the living God, the one who redeemed and restored her, the one who would sustain her in old age. And they gave him this name that would help her to turn her eyes to that God who provided so bountifully for her. That God she now could serve. Well, I just hope and pray that what I've shared with you would encourage your heart. If you are in that kind of position of difficulty and grief and loss, I ask the Lord that through this word you may be encouraged, that you too would come to the place where you remember there is bread in the house, the living bread, Jesus, the living bread, the one who sustains you, but also the one who will redeem you and restore you into fullness, into joy, the one you can worship and serve once again. If you have liked what you heard, if it has spoken to you, please press the like button, subscribe to my channel, and most of all, I'd love to hear if there was something which spoke to you personally. May God bless you, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again soon.